Yeah, obviously very, very happy to be extending my stay here. I know I said in a comment within the statement yesterday, there's a lot of history that's gone on now with the club. Myself, my family, where the club's come from, obviously the USL days to where we are now, and what we have available to us, very, very different from those early days. I look at what we endured in our first year, some of the real difficulties for families at our club, and likewise in the city with a hurricane early on as well, with tornado. COVID obviously, playing in empty stadiums, trying to get the group into what we would class as a competitive MLS team. The players along the way have been the glue that have held everything together, certainly for us coaches, and been extremely proud to have been able to be part of that. I still believe there's an awful lot for us to achieve. In fact, we're only just getting started, and to be adding some more time to my stay here, very, very pleased. Of course, not only for myself, but for my family and for those fans that like me being here. And if they don't, really sorry about that.
Thank you, Coach. I appreciate your words. We are going to open the floor for questions. For those in the room, please raise your hand and we'll get to you. And then for those in the chat, please use the hand up option in order to let us know that you have a question for Coach. You want to ask?
Gary, just in general, how do you feel about the group you have this year? And, I guess maybe first couple of years, a little more defensively oriented, maybe not so much. Ideally, what do you see? What would you like to see? And you've been able to retain a lot of your better players. So do you feel like this is a team that's kind of primed to do something?
Well, I think to your point, we've retained a lot of players because the team's been competitive. It's been what we would class as reasonably successful. We've made the playoffs in the 3 years that we've been in our existence, which is obviously no mean feat. And a lot of those players have been part of the group from the very outset. So, we're all happy with where we're at as a team. To your point about improvement, development, evolution, additions like Fafa make a hell of a lot of difference to the way that the group can present itself. Jacob, on the other side of the field, was, a later addition to the group last year. I would hope that there's certainly more to come out of Jacob as he settles in and those relationships form. And obviously with Hani winning the MVP, I would expect that his confidence and his outlook are not only similarly competitive to want to be back in that conversation again, but I know for sure when I speak to the group and when we've had our moments in pre-season, the guys are looking at how do we make that next step? What are the details? What are the qualities within our team that are going to offer us the chance to compete for a Shield, to compete for an Open Cup or MLS Cup? And that really has to be the challenge for all of us. I think we've got a very fluid and competitive vein that runs through the group that's been built over the last 3 years. And my hope is that over the course of this season, we can continue to improve some of the areas of our game higher up the field, in the attacking third of the field. We can adapt to some of the challenges that we faced last year in this very, very stadium, where on the odd occasion teams will come and be a little bit more pragmatic about their approach. How do we break those teams down? And I think it's having a little bit more time as a coach, coming from the very outset where we just need to be a competitive team. We want to be challenging for the playoffs. Well, we've done that, and we have been a very competitive group. I don't ever want to take that for granted because it's certainly not easy to be in that postseason. But we have looked at some areas of our game that we have to keep developing, we keep adding to, and hopefully that will take us to where we want to go, which is lifting silverware.
Along those lines of the pieces you've added, Gary, do you think that you have added more balance with your scoring capabilities so there's not such of a burden on Hani to do it every single night?
The hope is obviously that. I think we've seen that Jacob is capable of chipping in with some important goals. Fafa's background and history will tell us that he's also, from a wide attacking area, capable of chipping in with important situations and moments in games. But I think the main area is to try and obviously challenge the guys that have been here. CJ last year fell short of what was a terrific season the year before. It happens for forwards. Teal was injured to reasonably long-term injuries, having come off of some very consistent play and actually, an exciting run where, we looked and thought, okay, we've got some support here. He looked very confident. And likewise with Randall. Randall's creation and goal-scoring output wasn't as effective as the year before. But again, early on, he picked up an injury that kept him out for, a couple of months. And it can really affect a player's rhythm and sharpness coming back into games. We certainly have players that are more than capable, given the way that we go about our business, to add to the tallies that they offered up last year. And I think there's a bit of a hunger in some of those guys' eyes to put the record straight a little bit, and obviously we get the chance this weekend to kick that off.
Gary, as difficult as it is to say that one conference is easier than the other, and the MLS, for sure, do you feel that there's any advantages for the team this season going back to the East because of logistics and other stuff that it was pretty difficult last year? And also I'd like you to make a comment about how the addition of Papa had come handy for you for this beginning of the season.
Well, the first part of the question, I actually last year, when we had the 8 games away from home from the very outset, and we knew what the travel schedule was going to be like, running into teams that we'd, in some cases, not faced before in our history, I thought we were in for a real difficult ride. And it was challenging, no two ways about it. We had our tough moments in the season. So I was looking forward to getting back to the East. That more sort of routine travel program. Not so many time changes, of course. Some teams that we had run into before and maybe built up a little bit of kudos or respect with, because of the way that things had gone in the last couple of years. And then I looked at the schedule and I thought, oh my God, there's some tough games there. And you look around in both conferences at the start of every season, and, the league is built on teams being competitive, on teams having parity for all sorts of different reasons. And it will be a challenging year again, but for sure, We'll walk into some arenas that we've seen before, that the guys have experienced before. Yes, of course, changes to coaches and players. So, that's just football in general. But definitely happier with the schedule in terms of travel, and a lot happier to be running into teams that we've seen an awful lot more. As far as Fafa goes, from the very outset of wanting to add an attacking influence on the group, he was always uppermost in our minds, and for a couple of reasons that will be very obvious to everyone. He's incredibly quick. He's very, very direct. If you couple that with the fact that there are few players that can run at the sort of pace and acceleration that Fafa can, and work as hard as he does. He's good both sides of the ball. I think he gives us not just another option, but a different option. He's very different to Randall. They're very different players. He's very much along the same lines as Jacob. And as I've said a little bit earlier, he also adds goals to his game. His record tells us that. His experience, having been at Philly for a number of years and in this Eastern Conference, also was a nice attraction. And just about everyone that we'd spoken to said what a wonderful individual he was as well. A terrific personality, very, very genuine, and he's fitted into this group, you know, like a hand in a glove. He's been great since he's come here, and I do hope that he can get off to a flying start.
Thank you. With a follow-up question.
Yeah, with Walker and Shaq, and I guess Walker in particular.
You don't need that. It's not on, and I can hear you.
Walker's played a lot of soccer since the last season. How do you kind of look back at the experience of the World Cup? Both of those two guys in the U.S. team. Do you think it'll help them? It could be a hindrance because they played a lot. And just kind of what are your thoughts on what they got to do?
But both of them had come back from that experience and said, what a wonderful opportunity. It went far too quickly. You know, the ability and the opportunity to play against some top players, to stretch themselves, to test themselves. Of course, the disappointment of not being able to progress any further than they did, I think was uppermost in their mind. But I think it will serve both of them incredibly well as they move forward, for their countries and for their domestic play. As far as the amount of playing time they've had, modern players are very, very different in their outlook, in the way they look after themselves, in their downtime, than certainly, you know, back in my playing days or, you know, different lifetime. But you're looking at individuals that look after themselves 24/7. They've had time off. They've had time to recover. Walker had a little bit of an issue with some Achilles tendonitis last year. He's back to full fitness. He's in good shape. I think there's an appetite there. Likewise with Shaq, enough time off. In fact, probably too much time, and they're looking to get back in and work and be around the teammates again and be looking for the next challenge, because that's the mentality of a player and a top player. They want to be back in competition and back in the environment they know and love. And I think, you know, I'll touch on this again. The real undercurrent in the group this year has been, how do we compete for silverware? What have we got to do? We'll do anything to be in that equation. And obviously those guys are driving that push, mentality and otherwise.
Just curious as to your thoughts on the playoff format, Gary, and how it kind of changes the dimension of the postseason.
Yeah, it was interesting to read through it. I'd heard some sort of, you know, second, third hand conversations about it might change and more teams. It's interesting. You know, the wild card into, if I've got it right, matchups, best of three, and then into a one-off semi-final if I'm right, and then conference final. There's a lot of games there, a lot of games. I think everyone would like to be involved in that. It keeps, I think, some you know, some focus on, of course, finishing in the highest possible position to give yourself you know, an opportunity and more benefit down the line for home games. Look, I just like being in the postseason. If the rules change and the you know, the competition changes in terms of structure, it won't matter to whoever wins it. It maybe lend itself to one or two teams that are more consistent, because it's not just a one-off game in that best of three scenario. But I think everyone that gets in the postseason will be looking forward to it and will be, doing their very utmost again.
We are going to transition to those on the Zoom. Ben Wright, please go ahead.
Yeah, Gary, first of all, congrats on the extension. You're just a couple days away from the season starting here. I'm wondering what you've seen from New York City kind of over the offseason. They're a very different team from last year. What are you expecting from them on Sunday? And then just how's your group looking health-wise?
Yeah, they are a different team in terms of certain personnel, and some important personnel, of course, have departed. But I think we have to safely say that, New York City and the City Group do a fabulous job and have done in their recruitment and bringing in players or having players in-house that can fill that void. And I would suspect if things are not quite how they would like it in the opening games of the season, that there'll be the ability to try and add to that. They're a very strong soccer group, and I'm sure they'll find a way to make that group stronger, that New York City group. So the philosophy doesn't change. Some of the footage I've seen, Nick's continuing along the sort of philosophical route that group have been about for a long while. Lots of very talented soccer players, comfortable in possession, still got some nice experience through the core of their group. But it's the start of a season, Every team will be fighting for that first victory, to get themselves in a rhythm, to build the confidence and to underline all the hard work that they've done throughout the pre-season. So, it wouldn't matter whether it was New York City or anyone else that we were playing first game. They're always very, very tough, the openers. And, we'll certainly be giving it our best shot. As far as health goes in the group, the guys that have been out, Hanny, CJ, Dax, are all, I believe at this point, ready to join us. And I think will be available for the weekend. So, yeah, we're in a good place with those guys. They've recovered well. I think that bit of extra time, staying away from the group and pushing too early, obviously up until this point, has been the right move. And, I'm feeling confident that they'll be with us on Saturday. Apart from that, Nick Dupay, he's still struggling with a calf problem. And, I think other than that, I think we're good. Yeah.
We'll continue with Kim Sullivan.
Hey, Gary, as you look back to last season and then kind of project to this season, how different is it going to be being able to start the year in Geodis Park, being able to have a much less daunting road trip just at the beginning of the season like that last year?
Well, we've got a lot more balanced schedule, across the course of the season, and I think all teams like to see that opportunity to, be back at home in quick succession without spending long periods away from your home fans, your family. So the schedule itself looks a hell of a lot better for us. But of course, the start of a campaign, in our new home and exceptionally good new home. The fans were terrific for us last year. I expect nothing different this year. We'll be doing everything we possibly can to make this place as tough to play in for opposing teams as possible. But I think all told, we get the first opportunity in our history to have what we would class as a normal season. Your own facility, balanced schedule, and at this point, no extenuating circumstances that are going to interrupt the season. So I think everyone's looking forward to it. We're in a good place to go into the season and to fight for something we haven't achieved yet.
I actually was going to ask a little bit about what you were saying at the end there. How different is it to have, the inaugural season. There's no opening a new stadium. There's no coming back from a global pandemic. What does it mean to you that it's time to finally just, hey, we can have a normal season and we can just focus on the soccer itself?
Yeah, I mean, I said at the very start when I was asked about my own situation, we've encountered circumstances that few teams, fan bases, groups have ever had to deal with as a brand new franchise, and the players have shown great fortitude throughout that challenging period of time. And when I say challenging, 8 games away from home has to be, part of that challenging process. New stadium, of course, we absolutely love being here now. But, looking at that programme last year was incredibly daunting. So I truly tip my hat to the players, the way they've gone about their work, and they deserve this moment, which is a normal season. But I guess it's all part of a brand new franchise and the steps that you have to take. And unfortunately, some of those steps we encountered, a pandemic along the way that nobody could have ever expected anyway. So, yeah, really happy to be kicking off and looking at something that looks pretty normal.
And then last one from me. Obviously, last year, it's no secret how important Hani was to you guys, and what a big piece of the attacking side of the pitch he was for you guys. What is your plan or do you have one? Are you happy letting him do the whole thing, or to take some of the pressure off, so that it doesn't have to be the Hani show? 34 regular season games and whatever cup competitions you guys are as well.
I'm happy with it being the Hani show. Yeah. If he continues to play to the sort of standard and level he does, why would I want it any different? I think the team have appreciated, supported, and been a great unit to help enhance his qualities. I think he's done likewise for other players as well. Some of the relationships that have been built have been fantastic. Yes, of course, we spoke earlier about other players chipping in with goals. I think we do have more competition, better dimensions, relationships and experience of league play, cup play, etc. As we all grow and develop, we're in a much better place this season than we were last, and obviously the 2 years before that. So we keep improving. Our form and where we finish in the league will underline that, of course. But I certainly feel as though we're moving in that direction. Some of the guys in the group, I think, are at some of the pivotal moments in their career. Walker's coming up 30 years of age. He's in the prime of his powers. Hani coming up towards that. Guys like Annabelle and Sean Davis, while still experienced, have got loads to prove, want to win. There's benefits of having so much experience in the group, and there's obviously, some trouble sometimes of having so many voices and so many personalities. But I can't remember a moment that, with all of the energy and personality and characters that we have in the group, that we've never been on the same page, we've never wanted the same thing, and the guys have never fought for each other in that process. And I think we're at that point where there's a number of them realise that if they're going to get something done, this is as good a time as any to get it done.
We are going to go back to Ben Wright for one final question today. Ben?
Yeah, Gary, we've talked a lot last season about just kind of home form and how you guys can take the next step at Geodis Park and really turn that into a place where you win consistently. Just looking back at last year and the work you've done over the offseason, how do you feel about playing at home this season in a more regular schedule, and what are your plans to kind of take Nashville a step forward at home?
I certainly feel as though the work and a large portion of the work that we've undertaken in the off-season, along with not just obviously Fafa's addition, but the continued growth of the likes of Jacob. I feel as though we're in a better position to take advantage of our home stadium. I think it's every team's outlook to be as productive as they possibly can in those home games. I think in generally the statistics tell us that away form, away points are tremendously difficult to come by. Our away form, strangely enough, has always been very, very decent and has held us in good stead. We were desperately disappointed with some of the results that, ended up here in this stadium last year. And again, I think the guys want to do their very utmost to make this a tough place to play. I think the fans are doing their part. I think in the main we've set a reasonable tone here, but I think we're in a better place this year with the players that we have and the balance and dimensions that we have to answer some questions that maybe were a little bit more difficult last year. The players are capable of, I think, multiple styles, and I certainly feel as though for I want to move and shift and maybe look at the group that we have, more options to do that. And of course, the competition always keeps players at their very best. And the best teams have daily routines and workloads that are always stretching them. And that competition is vital to that.
Thank you, Coach, and thank you, everybody, for